Path of Exile 2 just released on December 6th for early access, and it has been a resounding success. According to the Path of Exile team, just before launch day, they had over 1 million early access copies sold.
Hey guys, we've just passed 1 million redemptions for Path of Exile 2 keys, and sales are still increasing.
And looking at SteamDB, you can see almost 1.5 million copies sold on Steam alone. This means it could be more like 2 to 3 million copies sold across all platforms, and it's only been a week since launch. Now, I myself have been having a great time playing Path of Exile 2, but I don't want to glaze it too much. I mean, this is a comparison video, right? So let's get to the comparisons.
Price.
Diablo 4 base price was $70 at release, but in order to get their 4 days of early access, you had to buy the deluxe edition at $90 or the ultimate edition at $100. And again, this only got you 4 days of early access. Now in comparison, PoE 2 early access costs $30, and they plan to have the game in early access for 6 months. Now after this early access period, the game will be completely free. So Diablo 4 was at least $90 for 4 days of early access, and PoE 2 is $30 for 6 months of early access. Now, if we want to compare prices for Diablo 4 right now to PoE 2 at release, Diablo 4 is $50 for the base game, or $70 with the expansion Vessel of Hatred, and PoE 2, as I said before, is going to be free to play. And even if we want to compare prices of Diablo 4 right now to PoE 2's early access right now, the base game Diablo 4 costs $20 more than early access to PoE 2. As you guys can see, the price difference here between Diablo 4 and PoE 2 is pretty significant.
Art design.
This category is much more subjective, but I think it's still very important to address. Diablo 4 is a major IP for Blizzard, and Blizzard has way more resources than a smaller developer like Grinding Gear Games. So when we take a look at the graphical fidelity of Diablo 4, it's surprising how poorly it compares to PoE 2, which is still in early access, and the devs have said much will change between now and full release. Some areas of Diablo 4 are definitely beautiful and striking, like the Dindai Flats in the dry steppes. The teal waters and the reddish-brown grass are really cool to me. But places like Giakul and Kyrgyzstan look so bad. Look at the ground and the stone texture in the buildings, it all looks so bland and boring. I never once felt an environment look bland in Path of Exile 2. They all look awesome to me. But let me know what you think in the comments.
Skills.
In Diablo 4, there are definitely some cool skills, but if we do a sheer numbers check, there are 143 active skills, and that's including the new class Spiritborn that comes with the expansion Vessel of Hatred. If we look at Path of Exile 2, there are 132 active skills in early access alone, with a total of 240 active skills coming with the full release. That's almost 100 more active skills than Diablo 4. Speaking of skills, there really isn't much synergy or interplay of skills in Diablo 4. In late game, you basically just mash one skill over and over as fast as you can. In Path of Exile 2, the skills are designed to play off of each other. Plus, the slower and more intentional gameplay design makes using a variety of skills more viable and even necessary.
Enemies.
In Diablo 4, the basic and elite monsters get recycled and reskinned quite often, and it's very blatant. For example, there's this one monster that gets changed from its basic form to basically just having a little red aura around it. And if we look at the total number of bosses in Diablo 4, there's 64 of them, and that's including all dungeon, stronghold, world, seasonal, campaign, and expansion bosses. In Path of Exile 2, there are over 600 monsters intended for full release, and some are definitely reskins, but the reskins are significant enough that they actually look different. Like, I have to look closely to check and see if it's a reskin or not. In terms of bosses, Path of Exile 2 has over 100 bosses coming to the full release of the game, with 40 already in early access, and this is not even including planned seasonal content.
Difficulty.
Again, this is a subjective opinion, but Diablo 4 is very easy. I mean, you will basically not die in this game unless you are just really not paying attention, and any build pretty much can defeat any boss. Path of Exile 2 finds a good balance of difficulty where you can easily one-shot certain enemies, but then other enemies can two-shot you if you are not being careful and working your ability combos. Now the bosses is where the real difference is. Diablo 4 bosses feel very samey in mechanics, and they have 2 or 3 mechanics at most. But the mechanics do not change with difficulty. The speed of the boss changes, and the health changes, and that's basically it. In Path of Exile 2, the bosses vary greatly in both visual style and mechanics. They're not made to be bigger and bigger bullet sponges in order to increase their difficulty. All of the bosses keep you on your toes and can easily wipe you out if you're not careful.
Bugs.
Now, I hadn't logged into Diablo 4 for a while, and when I logged in doing research for this video, something that immediately surprised me for a fully released game is the amount of rubber banding and lagging I experienced. I have a 3070, a 9th gen i7, and 32 gigs of RAM, and I'm running the game at high settings, so it's not my PC that's causing this issue. I also checked my internet speed and my ping, and those also looked fantastic. So it's their servers. Still. After all this time since launch, they still haven't optimized their servers for people to enjoy even walking around in the world, let alone fighting monsters and bosses. Path of Exile 2 is in early access, so it's expected that there will be bugs, but I still need to mention them. I saw one instance of a monster sitting there, not moving, and then kind of slowly floating after me after I killed it. To be fair, this game is beautiful, and I wanted to run it on high settings, and my PC was getting hot. I could feel the exhaust from the fan, so it may have been PC performance related. One other thing that I did experience that I'm sure was a bug was 2 separate times I fought bosses and we killed each other at exactly the same time. I see their loot drop, I go back to check for the loot and the loot is gone, but I'm pretty sure this has already been patched out. And those are really the only bugs that I remember experiencing in Path of Exile 2. And this is all to compare a fully released game with a fully released expansion to a game that's in early access and plans to be for the next 6 months. IGN seems to think these games are rated the same because they gave both of these games an 8 out of 10. I'll leave it up to you to decide which game is better, but I know which game I'll be playing. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.